Army veteran and founder of combat business coaching, Andreas Jones, wants to help you build a meaningful business. Coming up next on episode 133 of Veteran on the Move.
Welcome to Veteran on the Move. If you're a veteran in transition, an entrepreneur wannabe, or someone still stuck in that job trying to escape, this podcast is dedicated to your success. And now, your host, Joe Crane.
Have you checked out the Veteran on the Move YouTube channel? In addition to listening to any podcast episode, you can join our live stream. I'm starting a new project soon, and you can watch us live on YouTube as I walk a soon-to-be veteran through his transition out of the military over the next year. Join us live as we take this veteran through the transition process and into the civilian sector. Also, these live streams will be archived on the Veteran on the Move YouTube channel to watch if you can't make it for the live airing. Make sure you subscribe to the Veteran on the Move YouTube channel, and you will be notified when we go live with our new project on transition. The top 7 paths to freedom is my free gift to you for listening to the show, featuring 7 great ways for a veteran to take their first step into the exciting world of entrepreneurship. To receive your free gift, go to veteranonthemove.com. Or if you're listening on a mobile device, you can text the word veteran to 38470. Andreas Jones is the founder of Combat Business Coaching. He's also the #1 best-selling author of Business Leader Combat, a business strategist, leadership advisor, marketing strategist, contributor at the Huffington Post, member of the Forbes Coaches Council, and Army combat veteran. Andreas works with small and medium-sized businesses to help them build meaningful businesses so that they have more profits, fans, and freedom. All right, Andreas Jones, welcome to Veteran on the Move. Thanks for being here today. And before we get to talking about business and entrepreneurship, take us back and tell us what you did in the Army.
Oh, thank you for having me, Joe. So I joined back in 2005. So at the height of both Iraq and Afghanistan, initially signed up to be a supply specialist. Did that for a couple of years and transferred over into the military police corps. So I had two different responsibilities at some point in my career.
All right, and how long were you actually in the Army?
9 years. Did 9 years in the Army.
Okay, wow. And why don't you take us through a little bit like what your transition was like? I mean, were you planning way ahead of time to get out, or did it happen quickly for you, like some folks, or did you come out prepared? Can you walk us through some of that?
Oh, absolutely. So I joined in 2005, did a couple years active. After my tour in Afghanistan ended in 2008, I had injured my back, so I got out just a little bit earlier than I wanted to. But to say I wasn't prepared for the transition, and coming back to the United States in 2008, we all know what happened in 2008 with just everything went haywire and everything was just out of whack with the economy, housing bubble, and just not a good time to come home and trying to literally start over.
Oh yeah. So, I'm still trying to get rid of houses from that time frame.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the time I came back, and so it was hard. My transition was hard in the fact that all of that was going on, and then I was trying to get a job during that time, which was incredibly difficult to say the least. So, however, after coming back in October 2008, I finally got a job in April 2009 with AT&T in a call center, and I had to just put my head down and trying to make it work at that point, as the situation and everything was just developing and everyone was trying to find a way. So just getting a job was a big win for me, but working in a call center wasn't really, my calling per se. And I excelled at it, because of my military training. I was disciplined enough to learn the material and learn what I had to learn, but it wasn't my happy or my sweet spot, so to speak. And so from AT&T, and I was back in Florida, I went on from AT&T and transitioned to the Home Depot here in Atlanta, Georgia. And that was a great challenge in and of itself, moving from one state to a new state, starting over. But I was able to leverage connections to do that. And that has been, I guess, one of my biggest calling cards to where I'm at today. I leveraged connections from AT&T to Home Depot, getting to Home Depot as a project manager. Did that for a couple of years. Then went on to SunTrust Bank as a VP of procurement and strategy. And doing all of that while having no college degree, just a high school graduate. Yeah. That's not a story you hear every day, but as I said, my number one calling card and the number one strategy I used was just forming relationships and leveraging those relationships to get those opportunities. But also, outside of leveraging the relationships, I also had to show that I was worth that introduction to that next opportunity. And so, work ethic was a big part of it, putting out good quality work that I wanted represented of me if there was an opportunity that ever came up. And so making that transition, it was challenging because I was thinking to myself, wow, I'm not qualified according to the job descriptions of all these jobs. Being a VP, they're looking for people with master's degrees and doctoral and PhDs and all that stuff. But just leveraging my military experience and in relationships, I was able to transition to a couple of different opportunities and to set myself up for success in the corporate world. But I'll say, to any veteran transitioning out, your number one career tool is going to be your network. Just creating the right connections and knowing how to strategize and leverage those connections.
Absolutely. I was gonna jump in and say, you may not have had the fancy degrees, but what you did was you networked your way, and of course you obviously had some credibility and a good work ethic. You put out good work, otherwise you wouldn't have continued to climb. But you basically networked your way into those jobs and used your connections. And ultimately, even if you have the big fancy degrees, you're going to have to do that anyways. So
absolutely,
the degree just doesn't get you, oh, hey, come work for me because you got the degree. It's still going to require all the networking and everything else. Mm-hmm. You just happen to network your way in, and then there's probably did you ever have, did the guy, did a boss hire you and he gets you in? He's like, wait a minute, you don't have the degree?
Yeah.
Did that actually ever happen? That's hilarious.
And it's crazy because I have people on my team that, have masters and, 20 years experience. I'm like, wow, but if, the military experience is invaluable. If you leverage it and know how to, transfer it right, it's invaluable. Working for any branch in the military, that's that puts you in a class of your own, and where I see a lot of veterans kind of stumbling in that transition phase and how to translate their military experience into actual workable and relatable corporate for the corporate requirements. And it's it's sad for the most part, the military, the veterans unemployment rate. And, I'm trying to do my part, but, that's another conversation for another day.
Oh yeah. And I think that a lot of veterans have this misconception that as they go walk out the front gate, there's a bunch of businesses standing out there with signs saying, "Come over here, I'll hire you right now." And it's almost like that. But there's this missing piece, this missing element. The civilian companies don't have very good access to veterans, believe it or not.
Correct.
And the veterans don't have access to who it is that's looking. And so that's where networking fills that gap. Mm-hmm. There are so many people out there that will want to hire great veterans to come work for them. But in order to make it happen, you, the veteran, has to network your way into those jobs. It's not, no one's just going to hand it to you.
Yeah, there's a gap between the military experience and the civilian experience, and the best way to bridge that gap is through your network. Is to have someone who can help you translate your experience, for those opportunities, and because let's say, for instance, one of my MOSs in military was supply chain supply specialist. I mean, that translate in a whole bunch of different career opportunities on the civilian side, but I can't just say supply specialist. I have to really dig into that and find what they're looking for and to match that with my military experience. And so those are the little nuances that I guess a lot of veterans are struggling with. And as you said, it's not just get out of the military today and there's 100 companies say, hey, come work for me. There's a gap there in that, and you have to figure out a way to bridge that gap.
Yeah, and the beauty of networking is it's free. I mean, literally, it costs nothing. I mean, at the most, maybe you pay $5 or $10 to go to a luncheon somewhere nearby to network with people. But hey, you're probably getting a free meal out of the deal anyway, so it really doesn't cost you anything. And I think that's one reason why so many of us kind of take networking for granted, is because, well, we don't have to pay any money for it, and no one's built an entire university around it, and it's not really part of the transition mandatory courses I got to go to, so it must not be important. Mm-hmm. And, it's just one of those buzzwords you hear a lot about, but until you've seen networking come to fruition, and I got this. I've got this rough draft article about networking. It's one of those things. It's kind of networking is kind of like faith. You have to believe in it, even though you won't have any proof that it works.
Correct. And
oftentimes, years down the road, things you're networking with today, years down the road, they pay off, and they pay off in ways that you never thought possible. You never saw it coming. And the reason that it came to you was because of networking and who you knew and who knew you. So, and if you're still in the military, the sooner you can start, the better.
I would recommend if you know you're gonna transition out in the military, start that process very early out. Start reaching out, start building your network as soon as you can, as soon as you have an idea if you wanted to get out, so that when you sign your last signature and get out, you're not having to start all this from scratch. You have already built your foundation, and now it's just reconnecting and rekindling those relationships to expose you to the myriad of opportunities that's out there.
Right. I remember many, many years ago when I was still active duty, young lieutenant, I think it was over in Okinawa somewhere. Was talking with these young Marines, and they were infantry guys, and one of them was getting ready to get out. And I remember him saying, "I don't know, I'm just a grunt. I don't have any skills or anything to adapt out in the workplace." And I just remember thinking, "What are you talking about? Are you kidding me?" It's like you got more soft skills, you got more people skills, you've got more discipline. You've got more mission-oriented focus than most any other MOS. I mean, those kind of things they're invaluable to a business. You just got to network your way in there and get somebody, get to know some people. I mean, you're going to do fine. But this kid had it in his head. Well, I'm a grunt, so I'm not really worth much. And nothing could be further from the truth. So, whoever you are, whatever your MOS is or whatever your experience level is, don't sell yourself short. I mean, I've known people I've known very capable people with multiple degrees and incredible experience almost say the same thing about themselves. Well, you know, I don't know. And they just kind of discount themselves. I'm like, are you, you just like want to shake them. You're like, are you kidding me? I don't really think you know how capable you are. All you've known most of your adult life is the military. So it's easy to think that because that's about to go away. And it may take you a little while to get your bearings about yourself, but you're going to succeed. I mean, like this, you just know somebody like that guy's going to succeed. He never fails at anything he does, so it's going to work. Just got to get some confidence in there. So, well, I'm curious how are you still working in the business world? And I'm curious how you got started in combat business coaching.
Oh yeah. So I'm still active in the business world, but also have my consulting business. And how I kind of got into that is both my parents are small business owners, so I grew up in and around business pretty much all my life, until I went off into the military. And, so, one of the great experiences of my life was able to really see my parents, start a business, grow a business, experience some struggles, and, come out of those struggles to rebuild a thriving business, failed at a couple of businesses. So I was there to see all of that, experience all of that with my parents. As you can, you can probably pick up, I got a lot of summer job experience.
Some of the best. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been working, forever. But that's kind of my background from a business perspective. And I just started helping people. People just started reaching out to me, who knew my background, who knew my family. Like, how did your dad do that? And one of the classes I studied, it was pretty much business economics, and talked about just the different areas around business. And then one of the things that really shocked me during that study was the failure rates of businesses. I was like, wow, this is atrocious. 80% of businesses are failing in the first 5 years. I mean, that's not good. I know for my parents, and I know for a lot of other people, starting a business is a dream. And if you're telling me that 80% of people are failing or not pursuing their dream, after 5 years, then there's kind of something wrong with that picture. And so that's when I start pursuing consulting and coaching from a different awareness. And one of the ways I did that was I started networking again, started to going out there in the community, talk to people. And one of the first things I did was I got involved with the John Maxwell organization. He's an incredible guy on leadership, one of the top leadership experts in the world. And so basically on most of the reports and the studies you'll see on business failures, management and leadership is always one of those reasons. And it comes incredibly important once you understand leadership from that standpoint, that it affects not only your marketing side, your technology side, your human capital side. It has a footprint in every area of your business. So if your leadership is failing, it's almost a guarantee your business is going to fail. And there are plenty of companies and examples for that out there. You can look at Kodak. Kodak was one of the biggest, or was the biggest, photo company in the world. And their leadership got stubborn and didn't recognize the change in the climate, in the marketplace, and now Kodak is no more. And you got multiple other Sears, and there's a lot of examples you can see where the leadership failed the business, and it didn't only affect the leaders themselves, but all the employees and everyone else that's attached to that business is affected because of failure in leadership.
Right. It's typically not the idea or the product that fails. It's the leadership and business model surrounding it.
Correct.
You mentioned Kodak. There's that fascinating story about Blockbuster.
Yeah.
And then Netflix came on the scene. And at one point, Blockbuster had the opportunity to buy Netflix, and they turned it down.
Mm-hmm.
And then within just a few years later, Netflix was roaring strong, and Blockbuster was going out of business.
Yeah. Same thing with Yahoo. Yahoo had the opportunity to buy Google, and they passed on it.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So yeah, anyone in a part in the military community, one of the biggest things that gets stressed to you from day one is leadership. And I never fully understood why this was such a big emphasis in the military until I got into the business, where I was like, leadership is really lacking. And I was able to relate my military experience, with platoon leaders, platoon sergeants, and, just breakdowns, all over, and able to relate that to say, okay, this is what's happening right here. There's no communication going on right here. There's no vision. There's no purpose to what you're doing. What's you guys' mission? And so those are the things that are transferable into whatever area of life you're going, whatever business you go into. It doesn't matter. Without effective and efficient leadership, your chances for success are very, very, very slim.
Yeah. So what are some of the common mistakes that you see in brand new fledgling businesses? What are some of the mistakes they're making? And speaking in the context of the audience that's listening are veterans, people from the military community that are looking to start a business or in various stages of starting a business.
I can tell that from talking to hundreds of business owners, one of the number one reasons is the "I can do it by myself" syndrome. Having that, we are trained in the military to be self-sufficient, but you're also trained to trust your team. And a lot of people get into business maybe because you have a specific skill set, and that's your area of expertise. That doesn't necessarily make you expert in all the other areas of business. And so, business owners take on all this responsibility, all these activities in the business, and what end up happening is they get burnt out, overwhelmed, and stressed out with building their business, and next thing they're walking away from it because it's taking a toll on them, mentally, physically. It's taking a toll on their families because of not trusting their process to other people, to build a team around them, to know that they don't have to do it all.
And I can certainly vouch for that. But here's the problem here's the problem I've run into is it's tough to bring other people in, because typically if you're a fledgling business, you really don't have a lot of money. You might not even have any cash flow at the time. Mm-hmm. So how do you bring somebody in? Because most people, if they're going to come in and help, they're going to want to be paid. It's tough to get somebody who's going to volunteer out of the goodness of their heart.
Absolutely. So before we get to that point of starting off as a one-man show to building a team around you, that's where your personal leadership and personal development comes into place. That's where you have to start understanding your audience, understanding your market, how's your product or service solving that problem. What problem are you solving in the marketplace? Is there an audience that needs what you have? And those things become very essential to have a very descriptive goal of what is it that you're solving, and doing the proper research to see if there is an appetite for that solution. A lot of times, people have great ideas all the time, but there are a couple different factors that go on when that idea, is translated in the market. Maybe it's not the right time to do that. At the point, maybe your market is not big enough at that initial point, where you're introducing your product or service. And so I'll say it start with the preparations. Your pre-combat checks, is is there a market for this?
Uh-huh.
What's my message in the marketplace? Am I getting response from my messaging? And so those are things that you want to work on when you're just starting up, to get a proper understanding of your market. And then once you understand what your market is saying, then you can adjust your product or service to speak and be congruent with your market. And, from there, if you have a congruent message and product that's solving what your market is looking for, what they're hungry for, it's inevitable that, you're going to grow, you're going to increase your clientele, but your message has to be clear enough to answer that problem answer the problem and provide a solution for what they're looking for. And so it all comes down to clarity. How clear is your goal? How clear is your mission? Is your mission transferring from you to your audience, to your market? Do your market understand your mission and your message?
And sometimes as an entrepreneur, we know the mission, we understand the idea behind it, how it's going to work. It's like all bouncing around in your head. You might even have it written down on paper. And you start to explain it to somebody, and they're immediately off in left field or asking questions like, okay, are you listening to me? What are you talking about? And you quickly realize, oh, my idea isn't quite so obvious to other people, especially the uninitiated. Like if I'm speaking of an idea that has to do with an iPhone accessory. Anybody that has an iPhone automatically gets it, I suppose. But maybe somebody that's older that doesn't have a smartphone, they might be like, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. So the clarity, it's, people call it the elevator pitch. In 2 to 3 sentences, how can you clearly explain exactly what it is you're doing so that people get it?
Absolutely.
And oftentimes that's more difficult than you think it is.
It is.
And if you haven't sat down and thought about it and really worked through it and tried to make it brief and concise, and you almost have to memorize it in that particular way, and then carry it around with you in your back pocket so you can spring it on anybody when it comes up.
Absolutely. And that's also where your network come into place, because that's how you start leveraging your network to, okay, I have this idea, what's your thoughts on it? Of course you're going to protect your idea if it's something groundbreaking. You want to do your proper preparations and protect it. Don't just go out there and just start telling everybody about your stuff without protecting it. There's a lot of not so good people out there, if I could say that.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you know of particular instances where something like that bad has happened, but also on the flip side of things, in this day and age, you talk about non-disclosure agreements and stuff like that. There's a lot of people that refuse to sign a non-disclosure agreement not because they want to steal someone's idea, but because somebody can talk to them about something, make them sign an NDA, and then a couple years later, you're involved in some other project or an idea, and some guy comes out of left field saying, hey, remember that NDA you signed 2 years ago? This was my idea. You can't do it. And it's like, dude, this had nothing to do with what you... And, it was... unintentionally, you've supposedly infringed on somebody's idea, but now you've signed some document, and now you're prevented from doing anything that has to do with that idea. And so a lot of people just won't sign NDAs, and like, well, I'm not going to tell you my idea if you don't sign this NDA. And they're like, okay, fine. I got 1,000 ideas out there right now, and I'm just trying to sift through them and figure out which ones to take action on, because in the end, granted, it has to be a viable idea, but in the end, it's really the action on the idea that matters. So, I run across a lot of folks that are saying, don't worry about telling people about your ideas, because most people are too busy to grab your idea and go run with it because they're working on their own ideas. And you can't move forward with an idea unless you get honest feedback on it.
Correct.
But obviously, depending on what the idea is, you can't say, "Hey, I've discovered gold in this certain part in Colorado. What should I do?" Where is it?
Yeah.
That's a little obvious. But if it's just a concept or a random idea, it's highly unlikely that somebody's going to steal your idea and run with it. Although it happens. But one of the professors at Oklahoma State recommended to have an inventor's notebook. So you basically a logbook, and you might not get that person to sign an NDA, but you're logging the conversations you're having with them in this notebook. And there are times that an inventor's notebook has been used in court as, look, in January, I had discussions with him about this. This is when it happened. And 1 year later, he's implementing my idea in the marketplace. So he essentially stole my idea. So it can be used, but it's I guess you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. But
yeah, you just have to prepare. Make sure that you're protecting, and you want to make sure you're careful of your circle, who you're sharing that with. If you're gonna want to surround yourself with people you can trust, and people you've kind of vetted to kind of know their intentions up front. But it all comes down to you have to get that feedback on your idea. It's absolutely essential. And a lot of people, get an idea, get really excited about the idea, spend a whole bunch of money in websites and logos and there's all this other stuff without that important piece of getting that market feedback to make sure it's going to be something that the market wants.
So if we come to you for combat business coaching, tell us what that's going to look like and how we find you and get in touch with you.
Yeah, so my combat business coaching is a collaborative process where I'm essentially helping you validate your ideas and your actions that you wanted to take. So if you're wanting to start a business, then I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna guide you in doing the proper market research on that. Help you to direct you to where to get the answers you're looking for. If you're already in a business, I'm gonna take a look at what you have existing. We're asking the two big questions: what's working, what's not working. Those are essentially important at the beginning of the relationship to find out what you're working with. Just like in the military, you want to always do your pre-combat checks. You want to know what you're going into. So you have to, it's kind of your intel report up front to say, this is what's going on at this point. And then you could start developing your plan and a strategy from there. But the important thing is, that I really help people with it is understanding their personal leadership, and if they have a team, how they can maximize the productivity, efficiency, and the effectiveness of their team. Because you're only as good as your team if you have a team.
And how do we find you if we're interested in some combat business coaching?
My website, combatbusinesscoaching.com, has all my contact information there, social media links and profiles. So the best place to get in contact with me would be on combatbusinesscoaching.com.
All right, Andreas, if you had to say, give one bit of advice to that soon-to-be veteran out there that's looking to get into the exciting world of entrepreneurship, what would that be?
One bit of advice, I would say if it's a dream, well, wait one more day to pursue it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, after all, the sooner you can start, the better. And if you're still in the military, why not get started now? I mean, if you're planning on being an entrepreneur, the worst thing you could do is wait until you get out and then say, okay, gee, now what am I going to do? I can finally be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could have in this day and age, you can have an up and running, thriving profitable business before you ever even exit.
Correct. Absolutely.
And I think like the ideal scenario is if you start a business while you're still in and you get it going, and the only thing you're actually making money, the only thing keeping you from scaling is the fact that you have to go to work every day.
Correct.
And all of a sudden that workload goes away. Now you can rapidly scale on what you've already built because now you can pour the time and effort into it.
Absolutely. So, that's always my recommendation to my military brothers and sisters is that if this is something you want, even if you're going to a job, whatever you're doing, start the process early. Don't wait until you get out to start the process, because then it's just increasing the difficulty. Is not impossible, but it becomes difficult to just start, just right at ground zero.
Well, all right, Andreas, thanks for being here today and sharing your knowledge. And if you're listening to this and you are interested in checking out Andreas's business coaching services, you can find him at combatbusinesscoaching.com. So thanks again, Andreas, and these two veterans are Oscar Mike. As you can tell from listening to the Veteran on the Move podcast, interviews are a great way to tell your story and spread the word about your business. If you would like to get booked as a podcast guest, I recommend Interview Valet. You can check out Interview Valet at veteranonthemove.com/valet. Be sure to check out Thrive15.com, the world's premier online education platform that helps entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and intrapreneurs learn how to start or grow a successful business. Start your free 30-day membership by going to Thrive15.com and use the promo code VETERAN. Thank you for listening to Veteran on the Move, your pathfinder to freedom. If you like the show, leave us a review on iTunes. Reviews are always greatly appreciated. So until next time, this veteran is Oscar Mike.